That we give ourselves permission to open our hearts and to receive. To receive the I am. The I am love. The I am grace. To receive the I am peace. So I invite you just to take a deep breath in and exhale. Centering your thoughts. And if you catch yourself thinking about something other than right here and right now, in this present moment, bring those thoughts in with you. Become willing to bless those thoughts, no matter what they are. The thoughts that you have are you. Just hold that. Rest in that. We are taught in unity that God is not something outside of us. That we can't find God outside of us, but when we go to that still, small voice within us, that Christ present, this is the place that we have communion, where we celebrate our oneness, where we fall back into God. We are reminded that each of our experiences are an opportunity to see God, to see the God in you, to see the God in someone else. To see God, the good, the omnipotence. Just relax into that. Know your oneness. If there is somebody that you might be having concern about, bring them into your time of silence. Bring their thoughts of being whole and complete. Don't see yourself or them as lacking anything. But feel the presence of I am within them and you. And as we move into a time of silence, we are reminded that this is the place that our oneness is. as we bring our thoughts back into this room, I invite you to open your chest up a little bit more. Take your shoulders and push them back. Opening your heart. Allowing yourself the opportunity to expand your awareness this morning. For it is in this place we have great gratitude. And so it is. Amen. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Excellent.
Excellent. Oh, I love excellent.
It's always good to have excellence in your life. Don't you agree?
I always like it when you give me my opener, too. This morning, it's a pleasure to be here this morning, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. Today, I'd like to talk about having faith in God. We talked about it earlier. God is good. The omnipotence.
The absolute.
And how having that presence in our life, having that awareness and expanding that consciousness to it, that we can begin to transform our lives. How faith can take our lives from good to great. From great to wonderful.
And wonderful to extraordinary.
And how when we embrace the unknown, we can let go
And fall back into the oneness of being.
today we're going to talk about what faith means. Different ways to practice faith and to see how it is relevant in our lives today. We will discuss the power of forgiveness and how compassion with ourselves will lead us into self-forgiveness, and how applying these principles in our lives will afford us love
And grace.
that we already are. In Mark 11:23-24, the story of the fig tree. Some of you might be familiar with that. I get myself familiar with it anytime I try to use a quote. And the story of the fig tree. And he says, believe, have faith. The quote says, truly I tell you, or the scripture says, truly I tell you, if I say this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the ocean or into the sea. And if you do not doubt in your heart, but believe what you say will come true, that will come to pass, it will be done for you. So I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. What he is saying is to have faith, right? He's saying have faith. To open your heart and to receive, and to start to change your consciousness in the belief that this already exists and more. But that you need to anchor yourself into something greater, bigger than you could ever imagine. That it doesn't have to be something outside of you. It shouldn't be something outside of you. That's not to say that we don't have people that represent the God in all of us. That represents not the God, but God. That in order to move the mountain in your life, you must do the work to receive the gift of faith. Faith is one of our practicing spiritual laws. Do you agree?
Yes.
So what does faith mean? In Lessons in Truth, H. Emily Cady says, according to Paul, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the power which can bring our reality to us. Faith is not dependent on physical facts or evidence of the senses. It is born of intuition or the spirit of truth. ever living at the center of our being. The Spirit of truth that is living at the center of our being. Although this represents love and life, this is not the center of our being. Would you agree? The center of this, meaning unity and Payson, this is the place where we get to make this manifest and move much quicker. But the center of our being is that, what I referenced earlier, is that still small voice within you. That place where you just know that you can just fall like you're falling into a big, comfortable feather pillow and know that everything's going to be okay. Paul Hasselbeck, in the Heart Metaphysics book, in the section of the 12 Powers, he actually references Charles Fillmore's Keep It True Lent. And he says, faith is perceiving power of the mind linked with a power to shape substance. It is spiritual assurance, the power to do the seemingly impossible. It is a force that draws to us our heart's desire right out of the invisible spiritual substance. He goes on to say, it is a deep inner knowing that which is good, that which is sought is already ours for the taking. The assurance of things hoped for. And that's quoted from Hebrews 1:11. And then he goes on and he states, faith in the absolute realm is the ability to believe, to intuit, to perceive, to have conviction, to hear. Let me say that again. Make sure we're all hearing and we're all receiving, right? Faith is the absolute realm. It is the ability to believe, to intuit, perceive, to have conviction, and to hear. So what this statement says to me is, what are the different ways that I can practice faith? What is the different ways that you can practice faith? That we can practice faith in our lives today? Practicing faith are things such as having empathy. These are the things I'd like to talk about this morning. Is having empathy and being vulnerable. Don't run. I know that word. Faith we can all embrace, I believe, easily. Do you agree? How about that word vulnerable? Leaves you vulnerable, doesn't it? Like, Because if you were to look at Webster's dictionary, it's opening yourself up to be hurt. Is that true? Often. Absolutely, it's true. But can we look beyond that and say, what can this truly give to us? So let's talk about that. In the NBC Nonviolent Communication, it talks about empathy that heals. That when someone really hears without passing judgment to us, without trying to take responsibility for us, you know who you are, without trying to mold us, I know who I am, it allows us to relook at the world through different lenses and allows us to move forward in life. So here's an example. My daughter has found a new relationship in her life today. And she's been nurturing this relationship for about 2 months now. And while she was visiting me the other night, I overheard her end the conversation with this man by saying to him, I love you too. And now, I would like to tell you that I didn't go into judgment, or I didn't try to tell her, really? You can't possibly know him. You can't possibly know you love him. You don't even know him. I'd like to tell you I didn't do any of that, but I'd be lying. Call me crazy, but was I practicing anything that we just previously talked about? Was I practicing faith in her ability to have her own feelings? Was I practicing faith in her to discern what they were, her feelings were to her? No. Did I even take a breath and celebrate her newfound happiness? No, no, no. I went into judgment and I went into fear. So where in your life today can you improve your empathy skills with someone you love? With somebody you work with? Or even somebody you can't stand? We all have that person in our life. Is there an opportunity for you to have faith, to show empathy, and to be aware of their feelings, and perhaps just listen? So another practice of faith is to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is the birthplace of freedom. You believe that? The birthplace of freedom. It is not the place to numb out. It is not the place to run or hide. It is not about playing small. It is about opening your heart. So everybody do this, to receiving more. So open your heart. Expand your chest. That's being vulnerable. That when we open our heart, we are saying yes to love. We are saying, yes, I'm willing to be vulnerable. It is worth it. Because the odds are greater that you are going to be loved more than you're going to be hurt. Being vulnerable is being honest with ourselves and to others. It's about being courageous. It's about being exactly who we are and willing to have faith in the process. They think so too. The more we open ourselves to receiving good, right? The more we open ourselves to receiving good in our lives, the more people can be themselves around us. When we practice empathy and vulnerability, we are creating a space to feel safe and for people around us to feel safe, to be exactly who they are. When we create that space, when we open ourselves to be vulnerable, we are giving somebody near us permission to be vulnerable. We are letting them be who they are. So why didn't I meet my daughter right where she was at? When I didn't support her, and she wasn't playing small, I was. Would you agree? She just opened her heart and said, I am willing and vulnerable to receive this love. When I did that to her, when I practiced being small, I wasn't practicing faith. On the contrary, I was projecting my fears and expectations of how long sorry, I think it's funny when I read it now, how long it took to know you, to know if you love somebody. I told her at 6 months. I gave her time. I said, the honeymoon's over. Honeymoon's over. All of that fun stuff is gone and out the door. And she just looked at me and she schooled me. She's been listening all these years. So I ask you, is there a situation in your life that you can practice being vulnerable? Think of one right now. Stop for a minute and think of it. Where you can open your heart, open your chest, and be vulnerable. Is there a place in your situation in your life that you'd be willing to that you would be helping yourself or another person by expanding your consciousness? By saying yes to love? Is there a relationship that you would like to see go to the next level? And know if you just opened yourself up, opened your heart to giving or receiving more, would you be happier? Anybody? Something? Anything? And I'm not alone. So, you think of this and you say, okay, I'll have faith. I'll open myself. I'll be vulnerable. I'll do these things. I'll have empathy. I'll do what you ask. But why is it that we don't always follow that? We say we're willing. We'll sit here, we'll claim it, we'll own it, and then we'll walk out the door and everything changes. We walk back into life. Somebody cuts us off at the light. We forget about faith. We forget about having empathy. So what are some of the blocks that can prevent us from experiencing happiness, from living the extraordinary life? We're going to talk about non-forgiveness and non-compassion for yourself and for others. Do you believe that having forgiveness for yourself must come first?
Yes.
Good. And I don't have to go on without help here. We must practice the law of forgiveness to receive the life we are wanting to experience. In Lessons in Truth, it states we must forgive. We must forgive as we would be forgiven. To forgive does not simply mean to arrive at a place of indifference to those who do personal injury to ourselves. It means far more than this. To forgive is to give forward. To give some actual, definite good in return for the evil given. Now that was a quote from this edition, The Lessons in Truth. I shared it with Lynette when I got here. I was so excited when I was gifted this. It's from 1938. Our language is a little different today. But it means the same. When they talk about the good in return for the evil given, they're talking about for the lack of love given, the lack of empathy given, the lack of forgiveness given, the lack of compassion given. It is said that when we are internally violent towards ourselves and others, and let me start back. It says so that when we are internally violent towards ourselves, it is difficult to be genuinely compassionate towards others and to start our own healing process. But the key to this is to remember the specialness of who we are. Doesn't that feel good? The specialness of who we are. So together, affirm with me. I am special. Together.
I am special.
Doesn't that feel good? One more. I am special. Oh, one more though. I am extraordinary. Oh, say that together with me. I am extraordinary. Doesn't that set better within you the truth of who you are? Yes, it does. So we have to remember the specialness of who we are. So as we turn to the non-forgiveness portion, how do we turn non-forgiveness into forgiveness? We start by listening. We open our hearts and we listen again and we become willing. It's about opening our hearts. It's always about opening the space to receive the good in us, to receive the inherent kingdom of heaven that is within us now. It's always about opening and expanding to that. We have the opportunity, so when we open that, we have the opportunity to become aware of negative self-talk and thinking. Do you believe that? That when you open your heart, you can start to hear what you're saying to yourself? We have the opportunity to change it at that point in our lives. We start avoiding statements like, why didn't I just listen to my daughter? Why didn't I just stop and listen to them when they were trying to tell me how they felt? Why did I take it so personally? I'm stupid. Is that loving thoughts? Are you representing any kind of consciousness that represents good when you're saying negative Nellies inside of you? Being a negative Nellie on the inside? No. Or if I'd only. Or the shouldas. Shouldas. You know what the shouldas do? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. We're never in the present, are we? We continually to beat ourselves up. We continually to stop forgiving how to forget. We forget how to forgive. By avoiding the negative thoughts and start realizing our oneness of spirit, we begin to acknowledge what we say or didn't say, and we give ourselves the opportunity of change. We then take ownership in our lives, don't we? That when we can hear it and we become willing to change, we take ownership in our lives. So we start asking ourselves questions like this. Instead, we say, I know I judged my daughter's relationship based on my fear and my perception of when someone knows if they were in love. And I ask myself, what need of mine was I trying to meet? What need of mine was I trying to meet in that statement? So what you're doing is taking ownership of your mistake, and you are becoming willing to look at what in you are trying to satisfy. Forgiveness happens once you have made the empathetic connection to yourself. Only then can you forgive others. The next step in this process that we're going to talk about today is the process of having compassion for self and for those around us. To stop judging yourself for what you have done and step into love, kindness, and forgiveness. We start by forgiving, and then we move into embracing all the parts of ourselves and recognizing the needs and values expressed in each part. We look at how much energy we are putting into these actions, evaluating our desires that are behind, evaluating our desire that is behind each statement, and realizing how can we contribute to life rather than how we are not. So don't focus on the negative, acknowledge it. We call them denials and affirmations. Acknowledge that you have a negativity and affirm what it is that you want to see. Affirm the truth of who you are. Then you are able to see and affirm the truth of who someone else is. The truth is that all we want is good in our lives, and we would much rather be happy and prosperous than living a life of fear, guilt, shame, or even obligation. So as we leave here today, I invite you to fall back into God, allowing the grace and peace that already exists within you to come out and play. Remember to be kind and loving to yourself and to others. And most of all, remember to have a wonderful day.